Here comes Speed Racer, he's a demon on wheels. He's a demon and he's gonna be chasing after someone. He's gaining on you, so you better look alive. He's busy revving up the powerful Mach 5. And when the odds are against him and there's dangerous work to do, bet your life's eraser.
That should tell you what we are going to talk about today.
Wow.
And not the Wachowski monstrosity.
No,
or
none
whatever.
of that.
So Tim's sitting in for Mark again. Mark's being a rock star.
Mark's on that sax, man. Out there in the world making beautiful music for the people.
Mark,
what did you tell me he did? He did.
Mark is with a band. Mark has joined a band next to be running away to the circus.
Because Mark comes over here and we record every now and again.
Yeah,
and he's a better sax player than he
lets on.
Than he lets on.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
He's very self-deprecating about it. Yeah. And but yeah, so Mark picked up the sax again recently. I guess he was a band geek in high school playing the sax in the marching band or some such, and he's actually gotten pretty good in recent years. He's doing the Woody Allen thing.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So he's with a band, and there were like 90-some bands playing at the Roxy this last weekend, and Mark was rocking it up on stage. So
was it literally a battle of the bands, or just a scrum of the bands?
I think it was a scrum. It was one of those showcase deals. So so we're very happy for Mark that he was able to do that.
French chicks and saxophone.
I don't even know what kind of music they play for. I mean, was it jazz? Is it rock? Do we know?
Yeah, we mostly did some jazz over here. Although I did have him do some riffs on Tom Brown's Jamaica Funk for me.
Yeah.
But
killed it, right?
Yeah.
It's the best sax solo I've ever seen, and this is going to be a completely weird and obscure reference that only any listeners in France will probably understand. So there's a French rock star, French pop star named Jean-Jacques Goldman. It's been around for decades. Huge deal in the 80s, 70s and 80s when I was there in the 80s. Really, I mean, had an amazing album that was just all the rage. And then he had another album. He did a world tour in about 88, I want to say 88.
Mm-hmm. And
he finished his world tour at the Palace here in Hollywood. And I remember thinking, why would you finish your... Well, there's a ton of French people in L.A.
Yeah.
You don't realize that. There are a
lot of expats.
A lot of expats here. They work for corporations. They work for the airlines, whatnot. I mean, a lot of French people here. So he wanted to do a little shout-out to the Francophile community in Los Angeles. So he ended his world tour at the Palace in Hollywood, which is awesome because if you saw him in Paris... you would be like, spending $1 million and you'd be way back in the stadium with binoculars to see him. And I thought, but here, nobody knows who he is. I'll be like, I'll get right up to the edge of the stage. It'll be awesome. And I'll pay like $25, and it'll be amazing. And it was exactly that. And his sax player was this little guy who was about like 5'4" or 5'3" or 5'5", something. He's just this little guy who could wail on the sax. And at one point, right near the end of the show, little man starts killing the sax. Goldman wraps his arms around him, lifts him up, and starts twirling around on stage. And it's just, and I just remember thinking that is the strangest and the most awesome thing to do at the same time. He's like holding the guy and he's spinning around on stage. And he's holding him in like he's his little mini me, and this guy is just killing the sax. He's just playing it. And he's being spun around like a top. It's fantastic. It was really great.
That's crazy, man.
Anyway, that's my only sax story. So, you know what? You're on Film Week this week. I was on the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a nice grind out of the way.
Tell me about it.
But we do have to make a quick mention, and I almost hate to do this because Disney was so kind enough to send us this book, and the movie sucks. But we have Disney Pirates, the definitive collector's anthology by Michael Singer. Has a foreword by Johnny Depp. This is obviously released to coincide with the new Pirates movie, which is terrible.
Yeah.
But that said, the book is really great. And it's not just about the Pirates of the Caribbean. It even gets, it's like Peter Pan and Hook.
Captain
and
Hook, yeah. Disney Pirates.
Disney Pirates, all the pirates, and it's really, I mean, it's obviously primarily all to push the whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing, and there's a lot of stuff on the new movie in it. But I find this to be a really wonderful full color coffee table book with lots of great sketches and production artwork and nice behind the scenes stories in it. So even though the new movie sucks,
Yeah.
sorry, Disney. Thank you for sending this to us.
Yeah.
And this is great. This is an honest to goodness real coffee table book.
Look, probably they should have done 2 coffee table books and 2 less Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yes.
You save a lot of money.
Yeah.
It'd be another great book out there. But no, they were.
But Wonder Woman's great.
Yeah, so we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot in particular.
Yeah.
Is very good. Patty Jenkins, of course. I mean, look, it's a movie. It's a big summer movie, pre-summer movie, spring movie, whatever you want to call it. And it's important for all of those reasons, right? So fine. We talk. They're all super duper important, but then it's important on another level too. That I think we have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
It has to do with the nature of that character.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with Patty Jenkins, the director of the film, who of course directed that Eileen Wuornos movie.
Yeah, like
Monster.
a decade ago that won the Oscar for Charlize.
And so there are all kinds of things that maybe, it's unfortunate that these things are hanging on the success of this movie, but they are.
Yeah.
And so I think it's there it is.
It's that thing where yes, Patty. It's great that it. Here's how I kind of feel on this. So I think it's terrific that you have a female superhero movie directed by a woman. I think it's great that we now have a black superhero movie. It's being directed by a black guy. Mm-hmm. But I'll feel a lot better when the next white superhero movie is directed by a woman or a black guy.
A white male superhero movie.
And by the same token, when white guys are directing black superheroes, and when suddenly, we're just getting the best directors.
And to a certain extent on television, this already happens.
Oh, absolutely.
All those superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
You see Thomas Carter, and you see Mimi Leader, and you see all kinds of folks there. The studio system, handing people $150, $200 million a pop, still haven't come around to that.
No.
Just and I can name them. We can Antoine Fuqua, F. Gary, Tim Story. But the fact that I can name them is in fact is the problem. If I can name them all in one hand, and with women, Patty Jenkins and Mimi. Yeah. Who directed that first Twilight film? But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I can name them all.
Yeah.
If I can name them all, we're not doing something right.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
So, in any case, Wonder Woman, good. Learned a lot from the first Captain America and from the first Thor. Mm-hmm. And Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct the Thor sequel originally, too. So, I mean, there's all of the mythical stuff and the flashback to a World War stuff, even though this is World War I. They mix that up really nicely, and I think it's great. I think it's a terrific movie.
And, of course, she'll show up in the Avengers movie a little bit later. What is it? The
Justice League.
Justice League movie.
In
the fall movie. Right?
Is that this fall?
I think it's this fall. Yeah.
My goodness, she's coming back that soon. Can't get enough Wonder Woman. Yeah. No, and I'll leave it with this before we dive into the DVDs. But the thing that I thought was most smart, and I brought this up on Film Week, is that even though the outfit, the Wonder Woman outfit, is the same, you look at it and you're like, that's Wonder Woman's outfit. You don't think twice, but the subtle changes are really super smart. What Wonder Woman wore in the 1940s, even though it looks the same, it's basically pinup outfit. It's a bustier.
Yeah, what Betty Grable had on.
And it's a bustier with a headband that's basically a tiara, right, with a little point going.
More or
up.
less the same thing for Linda Carter in the 80s. Yeah.
But what they've done here is they've taken that headband and they've flipped it so it points down now. So it almost like it's pointing into a nose guard thing, right? It comes from it almost looks like medieval helmetry.
I was going to say more Roman.
And the skirt is sort of more like a Spartan warrior skirt, right? And the bustier now looks a bit more like a breastplate. So it looks the same, but those subtle costume changes make it completely different.
Yeah.
And I think for that alone, whoever did the costume design really, really deserves an Oscar nomination.
And insanely crucial, because it would be very easy for a lot of folks to be beating this movie up about just that. It's as important as when Schumacher put those nipples on Batman. back in you know what I mean, dude, you can't don't put nipples on the Wonder Woman costume.
In fact, I was just watching that with my wife yesterday, and not because we wanted to, but we're looking for we're looking for snippets. My mother-in-law was an extra in at least one of the Batman movies, so we were looking for snippets of her extra work, trying to find it in the background because of a thing that I won't say, so that word doesn't leak back to her. Well, who cares? We're throwing her a surprise party. She doesn't listen to this podcast. So anyway, the only thing we could think watching that was, my goodness, this is a terrible movie. And I remember so well, I don't even know if you remember this, but we all walked out of that screening at the Village, the Batman and Robin, and everyone was dumbfounded, and everyone was walking out, and they were silent, and you broke the silence right on the sidewalk in front of the Village, and you said, well, I'll say this, that is filmmaking with reckless abandon.
I don't remember that.
And I still remember that because I laughed the whole way home. That's just that was the kindest thing you could say about it.
Joel.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So we got a whole lot of animated to brush through here. So I'll let you take a load off for a moment, and I'm just going to I'm going to kick through this anime that has piled up, starting with Speed Racer, which is finally, thank you, Funimation. Funimation, God bless you. You've put Speed Racer out on Blu-ray, and it is fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, a lot of people probably bought the Speed Racer car back when it came out on DVD. The first Speed Racer release was a special edition. It came in a little plastic box. It's all form factored to look like the Mach 5, and that is now a full-on collector's edition. I get that. You're going to probably want to double dip. Nobody's really going to want to get rid of the car if you're a serious Speed Racer buff, but you got to double dip here. You got to get this. It's all 52 episodes on 5 discs, 5 Blu-rays. No DVD here. There's not a dual deal, but it's this is just a really, really wonderful set, and it looks so good in Blu-ray. It looks so good. You also have the English channel and the Japanese channel, so you can listen to it in the original Japanese if you want. Pretty great. Everything about this show still ages really, really well. This is just one of the. I mean, this was the anime show that broke through here. And it was when I was a kid, and I think it's still just amazing.
Yeah,
it's still an amazing show.
Yeah, interesting. Not a lot of look. It's not the most forward-leaning show in terms of feminism, but no. Trixie had some backbone on her, and she didn't take any crap, and every now and again, she'd have to save Speed's ass.
I'm sorry the Wachowski movie didn't work better because the whole Racer X angle is just one of the great soap opera twists of any show ever, animated or otherwise. The brother you don't know is a brother who's looking over you, and it's a great bit of tension. And maybe someday they can reboot it and really work that angle. Speaking of live action adaptations of anime, we also have from Funimation, and almost all this is Funimation this week, so this is it's a lot of stuff. We also have Black Butler, the movie, which is a live action. The Japanese are doing live action of as much anime as they possibly can these days. And Black Butler is, it's all the rage right now is anime, and they have done a live action version of it, which is interesting because that's not the one I would normally have expected. We're doing a few here like Ghost in the Shell was recently made and a big fuss, Scarlett Johansson, not Asian, right? All that stuff.
Akira's coming
around. The Japanese have done a whole bunch of things, Full Metal Alchemist, and they've done a lot of live action things there too, some of which work better than others. This is an interesting one because it's not all kind of high tech and CGI and cyberpunky. They can actually make it a little bit more of a movie. It's not so obviously based in something that's animated and anime, and it's pretty good. I do feel like you still need to have a background in the anime to sort of understand the context of it. It's not quite a self-contained thing, but it works. It works well enough. So the question I'm not sure is if you know Black Butler, the animation, will that make you want to see this movie more than this would make you want to see the animation? And I don't have an answer for that. So maybe some people can tell us. gods@digigods.com. And by the way, we're going to wrap the show out today. We should make mention. We're going to talk about a little movie called Virus that is out now on Blu-ray. And Virus is a classic little old movie that happens to star a very good friend of ours.
Yes.
And Sherman Augustus, who is now all the rage on Into the Badlands.
Oh, yeah.
Plays Moon.
Yeah.
He's killing it on TV.
Yeah.
And Sherman and the director of Virus, John Bruno, who is a special effects legend.
An actual guru of special effects.
Like, literally, truly, his credits will blow your mind. I mean, this is a guy who has been in it forever, and James Cameron doesn't make a move without him.
If James Cameron made a movie in the last 30 years and you saw something in it that blew your mind, that you thought was really John Bruno figured out how to do that. Practical effects guy. He's a practical effects guy.
And Virus was his directing debut.
Yeah.
So we sat down for a good solid hour with Sherman and John Bruno and went over all kinds of great stuff. So we're going to put a snippet of that interview right at the tail of the show today. And then for people who want to hear the whole thing, look for that as a separate podcast upload later this week. We're going to pop that up later this week, and you'll be able to dig into that. So, quickly, a lot of other great stuff from Funimation. So we have My Hero Academia Season 1 Limited Edition. This is almost all of these are combo packs, unless I tell you otherwise. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. And this is, kind of a flip on the whole superhero thing about a guy who is not a superhero, but he lives in a superhero universe, superhero environment. And he's a teacher, so it's a little bit of an unusual twist. I don't find it terribly entertaining, but I hear that it's got a thing. Dagashi Kashi complete series is a little bit self-reflexive. This is about a guy who oh gosh, there's a twist to this, and I'm not going to give it away. But it takes place in the world of manga comic books, and I guess that's really all I can say about it. Dagashi Kashi, it's okay, that's all right. Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, the complete series, is terrific. This is a wonderful fantasy world. I'll sit around Mermaid Island. And does a much, much better job of kind of creating a mythos here than they're doing right now with Pirates of the Caribbean, which had some mermaids in the last one. But Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, complete series, really, really very creative, great artwork, pretty terrific. Prince of Stride Alternative, the complete series, again a combo pack. This is animated parkour. Now,
and that's cheating. That's just cheating.
Yeah. it's a little strange, but it's something that anime doesn't often do. But it's still not quite so. I mean, the whole point of parkour is it is people really doing it. It's like CGI parkour. It doesn't really do it for me. But anyway, so that's got a thing going. Some of this stuff is just I guess if you kind of jump from one anime to another, it's probably a lot easier to buy into some of this. We got a couple of Dragon Ball Z's here. Got Dragon Ball Z Kai, the final chapters, Part 1 and Part 2, which will make absolutely no sense whatsoever to anyone who has not followed Dragon Ball Z from day one. Seriously, it's just none of this stuff makes sense. I had to sort of go on to the wiki pages because I was watching some of this, and I've watched it intermittently as I've had to review this stuff over the years, and occasionally I'll catch it on TV, and that's a cute scene. Honestly, you just go, I think I know. I have no idea what's going on. So you go onto the wiki and you just learn a few things, and that sort of made sense of it. But that said, I've never been hugely fond of the Dragon Ball thing, but a lot of people do, and lots of action here. I will say that. Snow White with the Red Hair, Season 2. If you didn't see Season 1, this also will not make any sense. I had to Wikipedia this one as well, or Anime Wiki, whatever it's called. This has nothing to do with Snow White, by the way. This is just using Snow White name to for the hell of it. This is about a young woman named Shirayuki. So she's an herbalist, and the whole thing is a mythical journey deal, and it kind of didn't make any sense to me, and I Wikipedia'd it, and it still doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's nicely drawn. Here's something that is super, super cool. Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, the complete series, is a fascinating fantasy mystery, and it's really compelling. And this is some of the best written anime I've seen in a very, very long time. The whole idea here is that you have a guy who wakes up in this new universe this new world, and the people there have like collective amnesia about who they are, why they're there, etc., etc. And that's an interesting twist to me, because usually it's one person who has amnesia. This is like a whole society. And the way that this kind of mixes it up with, the fantasy and the supernatural really is quite fascinating. So really, really well written. Grimgar, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, the complete series. Pretty great. Really, really great stuff. So highly recommended that one. We also have another One Piece. This is the Gold movie. If you've been following the whole One Piece thing, this adds to the, don't even tempt this movie if you haven't been watching all 97 seasons of One Piece. It won't make any sense. This is strictly fan-oriented stuff, and it really, really feeds it. It's better animation than the series. Much better animation than the series. This is weird. Free! ! Iwatobi Swim Club, Season 1. This is more of that, Japanese school stuff. I just don't get it. I understand that, there's a whole kind of John Hughesy school culture going on with anime and school stuff. I don't get it, and I don't understand why the swim club is a thing. But okay, fair enough. It's not for me. We also have One Piece Heart of Gold. Which again is also it's another One Piece movie strictly for the One Piece fans. Great animation. This is a little bit more of a cryptic storyline, but it's still good. GARO, the animation, Season 2, Part 2. This is some of the best animated. It's still hard to follow if you haven't been following this from day one, but the animation is really, really beautiful. GARO is just the artists for GARO really go to the wall. They do a beautiful, beautiful job. And this is, again, a fantasy world, and it's all about the golden armor and, this kind of medieval, mystical Lord of the Ringsy thing going on. And it's great. It's really creative. It's beautifully drawn, beautiful colors, really, really elegant animation. Really, really great. Really quite like it a lot. Dimension W, Season 1. This is a limited edition combo pack of the show that is set in a future where there are scientific and political entanglements between alternate dimensions. And this one guy named Kiyoma Mabuchi is a bounty hunter, and the whole thing kind of feels a little bit Philip K. Dick. There's a little bit of Blade Runner. There's a little, it's got a Phil K. Dick kind of feel to it, which is all pretty cool. So you also get there's some artwork here that has character art from the original Japanese manga, and some art cards, and it's a really, really nice special edition. So Dimension W, not a bad show at all. Real quickly, we have the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, the movie. This is a little bit more of a kind of a noir-y mystery. Pretty good. 7 Deadly Sins, Season 1, Part 1. This is also okay. This is again kind of a medieval thing, a little bit of a medieval. It all borrows from European medieval stuff. Again, kind of very Lord of the Ringsy. Gosick, Gosick. It's not Gosick. It's just Gosick, the complete series, Part 1. Fantastic artwork, really fantastic. Takes place in the 1920s. Beautifully drawn. Very, very smooth lines. Great colors. Very kind of muted tones. Really kind of 1920s noir-y drama. Very, very cool. Highly recommend that one. And then we've got Endride Part 1, which is all taking place, underneath the Earth's crust and interdimensional portals, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I couldn't give a lot of time to that one. It was really kind of confusing and made my brain bleed. And then Haruchika, Haruta, and Chika, the complete series. I practiced that. I still didn't get it out evenly. This is, more kind of school stuff, and it still throws me. They're wearing the uniforms, and they got Japanese school politics, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't quite wrap my head around it. Shonen Maid, the complete series, a little bit peculiar. Not quite as charming as I think they probably think it is. It's supposed to be comedy, I think. It's supposed to be family comedy. Really get that. And then the last two, Divine Gate, the complete series, which is another great fantasy world about, basically a portal and the this whole kind of a mythical architecture in the universe. It's really kind of like Stargate done anime style, really. And then lastly, this one I want to talk about for a second because I could see them doing live action of this, and this is a really unusual anime, Gangsta, the complete series limited edition. And just the title alone tells you everything you need to know, which is the Japanese love to sort of appropriate other cultural concepts for anime.
American cultural concepts,
even European
internecine. So the whole thing,
and
music and everything
else. And so this really imports a lot of the American. Sort of the American current urban crime culture into a Japanese crime narrative that is very, very innovatively done. And this comes with a whole bunch of other stuff. There's like like cork coasters that come with this. I don't know who's going to use their Gangsta cork coasters when company comes over. It's like, hey, you want to see my anime coasters? But that said, still, it's really interesting. It's a really kind of aggressive series, and I think I think I could see somebody doing a live action version of this, possibly even here. So that's it. That's it for our anime spiel from Funimation, and then lastly, just a couple of titles that are not from Funimation. From Shout Factory, we have Digimon Adventure Try. Period. There's a period after the try. Reunion. Digimon has been a thing from Shout Factory and from Cinedigm for quite a while. I gave up on following this quite some time ago because the whole Digimon digital world thing just felt like a science fiction thing that was probably cool in the first 3 years of the internet.
Yeah.
And then it got old very quickly. Jumping back at it, it seems like they've changed a few things, but it still doesn't. It still feels very, very, very derivative, and I mean, it looks good, and they've improved the animation, but still doesn't really work for me. Still, if you're a fan of it, I'm sure you'll probably embrace it. It's Digimon Adventure Try Reunion. And then lastly, from the great people at Viz, is One Punch Man. Pretty great, pretty terrific. This has 6 all-new shorts on it that are available only. This has never been on television. They are the so-called OVAs. You know what? I mean, this is just really great. 12 episodes of terrific anime action. Really, really great. Half of them, like I said, never been seen before. And, if you're not familiar with One Punch Man, it's a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch, like great martial arts. So there it is. All right, Tim, shall we talk about new movies?
Do a little bit of new business over here?
Yeah.
In the more than 20 years now, closer to 25 years since Ice Cube, venerable hip-hop rap artist,
turned into a family man.
Turned into a family man movie star. Look,
it's weird.
If you had told me this 25 years ago when I used to hang around, in the hood, with the homies, including this dude, that he was going to be just a family man filmmaker, it would have just blown me away.
If I'd have told you, you know what, in 25 years, Bill Cosby is going to be on trial for sex charges.
Yeah,
and Ice Cube is going to be the new Cosby.
He's going to be he's going to be the guy your kids are looking up to. They took us both away, but there it is. Ice Cube, Charlie Day. The film is Fist Fight. Tracy Morgan's comeback film. Very, very good. Look, this is an okay little movie. The premise is that Ice Cube is a high school teacher, and Charlie Day is a high school teacher. Charlie Day says something inadvertently that gets Ice Cube fired. Ice Cube challenges him to the old school quintessential fist fight. They're gonna have a fight. You know what the problem with this movie is? They actually have the fight.
See, that's not good.
That's the one thing that they should. Everything else in this movie.
Charlie Day is a little too frenetic for me most of the time. I'd like for him to kind of dial it down from 11. He's at 11 most of the time, but still, I like all these guys. You know, my favorite look of Ice Cube's. How much money has he made off that scowl?
Whether he's looking at Kevin Hart, whether he's looking at whoever,
it's just that scowl. And, could I just say I love him in 21 and 22 Jump Street.
Yeah.
He is so unbelievably funny in those movies.
Of those adaptations, they did Chips not too long ago, the Jump Street movies. Of those adaptations, it's the Jump Streets that actually work.
Absolutely. I said that, we had to cover on Film Week Baywatch as well, and I said that. The model for this whole thing is really the Jump Street movies, which are so funny. And, nobody else has really risen to that.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. What do I got here?
Kill 'Em All.
Kill 'Em All. Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Blu-ray. Kill 'Em All. Jean-Claude Van Damme still has the distinction of never having actually spoke a word of legible dialogue in a movie.
Yeah,
his entire career.
True.
No believable dialogue, not once, not ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Jean-Claude with a gun again. Big massive shootout goes down.
He's aging okay. I mean, he's got some lines in his face,
but he can move around, Gil. He can jump around like a spider monkey, just like he's no Keanu Reeves, but he gets around. He gets along okay. Anyway, Jean-Claude Van Damme in this thing. If you're into your Jean-Claude, this is Maria Conchita Alonso.
I still love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
She shouldn't have done the face work, but what are you going to do? It's fine.
So Schwarzenegger trying to have a career again. I kind of, people are going to laugh at me for saying this, but I really think he should just direct. I really do. I think Arnold should stop being a movie star. And I think the same thing about Jackie Chan.
Mm-hmm.
I think these guys, they're in their 60s. Seriously, hang up the acting. You are both very talented filmmakers. Jackie was directing great movies in the 80s and 90s, and then he stopped.
Yeah.
And now he just direct again. You're a great director. And Schwarzenegger, for those who don't know, is not a bad director.
Yeah.
Christmas in Connecticut. It's the only thing he's ever directed. The TV remake of Christmas in Connecticut is really cute.
It really, really moves very, very nicely. He has timing and all that kind of stuff. And certainly don't keep doing what you used to do in the movies, which has to do with muscles and that guy's gone. That guy's gone.
No, the pecs are drooping. But in any case, Aftermath is okay. This always makes me worry. Inspired by true events. Really? Vengeance is a journey with no return. Oh, do we really, really want to be putting Arnie into like another half-baked, warmed-over Death Wish remake? I mean, he loses his wife and daughter in a plane crash. And then we get into he gets into he goes into the downward spiral of trying to put his life together again, and that leads to vengeance and et cetera and so forth. This is one of those grindstone things made for Lionsgate Premiere. We talk about these every once in a while. Grindstone does all these kind of they're mostly movies with Steven Seagal and Nicolas Cage with guns that get released straight through Lionsgate Premiere. It's all very, macho and manly and whatnot. There was one with Antonio Banderas and that we talked about on the radio as well that was better than the usual. This is kind of maybe marginally above average for Grindstone, but it's sad seeing Schwarzenegger go in that direction. Also want to make a quick mention of a couple other little action-y testosterone things, or, well, one of them more estrogen than testosterone, but we'll get there. Enter the Warrior's Gate. This is okay. This is, a martial arts thing, a kind of East-West hybrid thing, Hollywood martial arts mixed with Asian martial arts. And it feels a little bit confused and schizophrenic as a result. Director Matthias Hohne, who I guess is some kind of German director, he handles things well enough. But on balance, what this is really trying to do is take Dave Bautista, the WWE star, stick him in a movie with some Asian martial arts stars, and hopefully have something that'll travel across the Pacific.
Well, Dave has a little bit of heat because he's in those Guardians. He's the guy with the neck.
Oh, that's right.
Dave,
yeah.
So,
I don't know. It's okay. I mean, if you like these kinds of movies, but it's not really my speed. Enter the Warrior's Gate. And then lastly, this film caught all kinds of heat. The Assignment with Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah, man.
So this is
what I mean by the estrogen.
So basically, here's the deal. You got a guy who wakes up after a sex change, and now he's Michelle Rodriguez, and he's got to do he's got to track down the people that did it to him.
Yeah. Which includes Sigourney Weaver, among other people.
It's
kind of doing Hannibal Lecter in a wacky kind of way.
This is Walter Hill still not quite coming to grips with the fact that it's not the 80s anymore. I don't even know if this would have worked in the 80s. This just isn't really very. This is just a kind of a silly gimmick.
First of all, if I were a guy and you did surgery on me and I literally came out looking like Michelle Rodriguez, I'm okay with that. I'm not mad at you. I mean, if I literally look like her, I'm like, what the hell? That's fine. And the thing of it is, just like a lot of gratuitous naked in this movie. I'm usually all for gratuitous naked, but it's like actually gratuitous. And I don't know, whatever. It's not good for me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a silly movie, but it's Walter Hill for what that's worth. I mean, he's still out there trying to make movies.
Yeah. Hey, man, the last man standing.
We talked about Streets of Fire a few weeks ago. I still love that movie. I want that Walter. 48 Hours. I want that guy back. I want him back.
What do I have over here? The Last Word. Shirley MacLaine, Amanda Seyfried movie. It's about this old lady who hires this young woman to sort of write her life story, to help her with her biography. And she doesn't like the way it goes. She doesn't like the way she's sort of like coming off in it. So she sets out to sort of like straighten out the nature of her history and rewrite her life story. The most interesting thing about this is that it's a Mark Pellington film.
Oh, Mark Pellington.
Yeah.
It's such a promising career.
Arlington Roads. That's about 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Henry Poole, sometimes in the middle 2000s. I don't know, whatever. It has a beat or two to it that's kind of interesting. And Shirley MacLaine is kind of like on her tour of playing a irascible old lady. She's been doing it for 30 years, really. Didn't we give her an award this last
year
for the at LAFCA? Dan Stevens, who is everywhere.
Everywhere. He's milking it because he understands he's not going to be able to milk it forever.
It can go away on you. This movie, The Ticket, of course, he's in Legion, one of the better.
And Beauty and the Beast.
And Beauty and the Beast and all that kind of stuff.
Which we're going to talk about next week.
This little movie, The Ticket, which I saw for Film Week, was look, an interesting premise. You have this guy who is blind and married to this beautiful woman. He has a good life where he does very interesting things. He gets his sight back through a set of events,
and he gets a sex change.
No? Not to look like Michelle Rodriguez either.
Okay.
And then who he becomes after he gets his sight back. It's what this movie is about. How getting his sight back turns him into a different kind of person, and then something interesting happens after that. Audio commentary with the writer and director. A trailer, so not a whole lot in terms of special features. It's an interesting it's a particularly beautiful film to just watch. That's what I will say most about it.
So we got Prisoner X, which is a pretty decent kind of B-level spy thriller, or kind of age of terrorism spy thriller. Here's the thing. When I look at these movies, I always ask myself, okay, how obviously are you cutting corners to make it look like you had a bigger budget than you really did? And many of them will take place, many of them, like this one as well, will take place either substantially or completely in like an underground chamber. Like, well, there's a Holocaust above the ground. We're stuck down here. Or we're in a military installation. There's zombies out there. They'll come up with some reason to sort of keep you in an enclosed environment and then bring the horror to you. And others do a really, really good job of selling that so that you're not thinking, you just didn't have a lot of money. So this is one of those that does a really, really good job of selling you on the idea they probably didn't have a whole lot of money. You got this underground prison, right, where they've got this terrorist and they're holding him there, and there are things happening in the I don't want to. How do I do this without giving it away? There are science fiction-y things happening. There are science fiction-y things that will happen, and that's going to have radical repercussions. So anyway, it's Prisoner X. Very, very interesting. who is this terrorist? Why are they holding him? What does this mean for the world, for the future, for the past? Right, this kind of stuff. So anyway, it's very, very. It's a smarter film than you might think for a kind of a B-level movie.
Yeah, David Oyelowo and Rosamund Pike in A United Kingdom, which is the actual true story based on the true story, as they say, of the first president of Botswana. It's a whole complicated story about Botswana and what it was, and he was a young prince and all of this kind of stuff. But he went to college in England, and he met this woman who was just a shopkeeper, and they fell in love. And they got married. So then he took the white lady back to Botswana and told all of his people, "This is your queen." The white lady from England didn't go down all that well, believe it or not. But what's interesting is that it's actually quite a happy story. This guy actually became the first president of Botswana and was president for many, many years. And it's a successful story. You know the problem of this movie? The problem of this movie is that it is less interesting than the story itself. You know, I went and read up all this on Wikipedia and all this kind of stuff. Then I had to see the movie. I had to see it for Film Week. And I thought to myself, I had much more fun reading this last night on Wikipedia than I did watching the actual movie.
That is consistently true for a lot of so-called fact-based movies, because you have to take this really interesting history and distill it into something that can be sort of told as a narrative. Like a friend of mine says, he goes, it's unfortunate that people don't live their lives in 3 acts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what he means is obviously that, which is that, when you take a really interesting life, it's really hard to distill that into a movie. And that's probably a case of that. I do find it interesting, though, that we're getting a lot of these movies now, between this and Loving, the idea of movies that are sort of centered around the idea of mixed race relationships, and
and the ones that actually sort of work out beautifully,
that work out well
in a certain sort of way. Did you see the sense of an ending?
I did not.
Oh man, this. I really, really like this movie, and I didn't think that it got the attention that it should have, particularly because of Jim Broadbent. Charlotte Rampling too.
Love
Jim Broadbent. It's a story about this older man reflecting about some relationships and his life from 40 years ago in the 60s. Wow. So it's sort of divided, bifurcated in that way. He has a memory of a relationship that he had and certain things that happened in that relationship. The way he remembers it is not the way it is remembered by some other people who were involved in it. When he's a much older man, he gets a note that someone has passed away and that something has been left for him. And when he has to go back and engage Charlotte Rampling about all of that, the other person who was there these many years ago, what she remembers and what he remembers, and it's all about that, right?
That's great.
It's all about that.
Well, see, you got me excited now.
Because he's sincere. He sincerely misunderstood, and because of it, he really has lived his entire life not understanding who he is, who he has been as a human. He thinks he's been a much better human than he actually has been. It's a pretty good movie. I like it quite a lot. This is the DVD. What do we got on here? Special features. Well, not a whole lot. Doing right. By a great book, because this was adapted from a book. That's about all that's there, though. But I liked it quite a lot.
So Wolf, which releases primarily LGBT fare, has a really interesting little film here that did well at some festivals. It's called Heartland. Now, there are about 35 movies out there called Heartland. So this is the one that stars 3 actresses that you've never heard of: Laura Spencer, Valinda Godfrey, and Beth Grant. This is what I'd like to call, and I hate having to say this is more of a crossover film, because it's not just one of those lesbian films that's going to sort of be relegated to the LGBT festival circuit. This actually has a really, really interesting human central thrust to it, which is that you've got this woman who is, whose her girlfriend has died. She's completely, racked with guilt, moves home and has all kinds of problems with her mother, who still can't quite understand, the relationship. And it touches on a lot of really interesting issues that are both relevant to straight couples and straight families, gay couples, gay families, mixed families. It's very interesting. I thought it was very well written, very sharp, very smart, and quite well acted. So deserved all the attention that it got. Directed by Maura Anderson. Nice little movie.
I have Lovesong here. This is a very powerful. Also from that's not from
That's
Strand.
From Wolf.
That's from Wolf. This is from
Strand. Yeah.
Lovesong. Jenna Malone, Riley Keough, and a very, very powerful and suspenseful yet emotionally sort of mature movie about these friends and they have this friendship, and one of them's having a little bit of trouble with her husband, and then they go on this road trip together. They take they take the daughter, and there's a dynamic in their relationship, and it becomes very. There's a whole thing that goes on. It goes down. Boom. They separate as friends for a number of years, and then they come back together again when one of them is about to get married, and then we see another very interesting. But you know what? It's not like a thriller or a pot boiler or anything like that. It's about the real emotional beats that people have in their lives. And sometimes relationships between friends can be as intense as relationships between husband and wife, or wife and wife, or whatever it happens to be. And that's what this is about. Very sophisticated little movie. Lovesong. Again, not a whole lot on it. Bonus interview with the filmmaker and a trailer, and that's about it.
So here's a little movie that came and went, and which everybody ripped on or ignored, and I'm going to champion this movie because I think this is a cool movie. This is from Kino Lorber and Film Buff. Film Buff, I think, released it theatrically, if I recall. Kino Lorber is putting it out on DVD in any case. Welcome to Happiness. I am totally keen on Welcome to Happiness. It is really, really an odd movie. It is an unconventional movie. It gets very, very, it goes into some really weird areas, and I'm kind of amazed they even got this thing funded.
A debut film.
It stars Kyle Gallner, who I quite like, and who's starting to show up in more and more things.
And Olivia Thirlby, who I adore.
And Nick Offerman, who's always funny. Yeah. So here's the thing. Kyle Gallner is a children's book writer. But he's not just a children's book writer. He has a weird job. His job is to, like, people will show how I'm gonna try to keep this as quaint as I can. People will show up at his door that he doesn't know, and they've been sent there, and then he has to, like, interview them, and after the interview, he escorts them into his closet, which has a little door in the back of the closet, and they go through that door. And he never knows what happens. All we know is that someone or something sends them to him, and it is his job to escort them through the portal that helps them correct mistakes in their lives. And as twee as that may sound, as sort of eye-rollingly pretentious, it's really an interesting little movie. Because again, this is one of those cases where they didn't have a lot of money to make the movie, but they didn't need it because it doesn't need CGI, it doesn't need spaceships and monsters, and the door is not like a Stargate portal to It's just, it actually makes you reflect on a lot of interesting things. And I thought aesthetically the film also goes in an interesting direction. It doesn't feel like any other movie that has this sort of a plot.
I loved it. It's an original concept.
A totally original concept.
And I loved it. That's a debuting writer-director.
Yep, Oliver Thompson.
Yep. And yes, just beautifully well done.
I really thought this was a slick little movie. So look for that, please. Welcome to Happiness. Go and give this movie a shot. It's really, really worth the effort to discover it. It really is. Okay, Tim, we got Foreign and Criterion left before we get to Virus. Let me roll through just a couple other standalone foreign films here, which are worth mentioning. This is one that made it around Outfest a little bit. This is from Breaking Glass Pictures. This thing is just kind of, if 50 Shades of Grey felt too not explicit enough to you, then you will thoroughly enjoy this. There's actually, I didn't even see this. There's a quote on the back here. This is exactly what I was thinking. The opening scene of this film makes 50 Shades of Grey or even its sequel look like Mary Poppins. That is totally true. The movie is Utopians, a film by Scud. When you just go by one name and that name is Scud. Anyway, this is a Cantonese LGBT film. It is quite explicit. It is very literate. It is a little bit artsy and obscure. There's a whole tradition of this in Hong Kong cinema. Things that feel softcore and yet hyper art house, like almost to a Bergman Antonioni degree at the same time. And this is one of them. It's very, very dreamy, beautifully shot. Centers around this guy who is, how would I put it? He is enamored of his professor, and yet frustrated in life. And this all kind of dovetails into sexual experimentation. And I won't tell you anything else beyond that, but it is extremely explicit. So if that, Utopians, Cantonese language film by the director who only known as Scud. The Oscar-nominated Land of Mine by Martin Zandvliet is a kind of standard issue World War II film that always seems to get nominated for Academy Awards. The difference is that we're starting to get to a place now where people feel okay with movies that actually have sort of positive representations of Germans, or at least a positive representation of certain Germans and their plight during World War II. And this is one of them. This is about a bunch of German POWs who were captured in Denmark, and they were given the job of clearing mines off of the Danish coast. And it's a very good film. I don't know that it's a great film, but it's a very good film, and I could understand why it was one of the 5 finalists for the Oscars. So that's called Land of Mine. The Land of Mine, little play on words there.
Clever there.
And then we also have Staying Vertical from Strand, another one this week from Strand. Staying Vertical is a follow-up to the movie Stranger by the Lake, which is not one of my favorite films, so I'm not necessarily really, really well qualified to pass judgment on this. But it definitely is a follow-up. It's definitely in keeping in the same vein as Alain Guiraudie's movie, Stranger by the Lake. If you're familiar with Stranger by the Lake, you'll probably like this. If you're not, you'll kind of probably find it somewhat pretentious. The one I really, really want to talk about this week is a fantastic, amazing Blu-ray from Film Movement Classics, who keeps releasing wonderful movies. Film Movement Classics fulfilled one of my lifelong dreams, and they released The Best Intentions on Blu-ray a few months ago, which won the Cannes Film Festival in 1992, my first year there, which was the second Palme d'Or for Danish director Billy August. Billy August's first Palme d'Or, and he is one of a very few people who has won 2. His first Palme d'Or, and Ken Loach, by the way, just won one, a year ago, got his second. Billy August's first Palme d'Or was Pelle the Conqueror, and that is now on Blu-ray. And Pelle the Conqueror is such an amazing, beautiful, beautiful movie. Really one of the great films of the past 30-some years. I cannot recommend it enough. Arguably one of the 2 or 3 best performances of Max von Sydow's career. Absolutely gorgeous film, beautiful and powerful. The idea here is it's basically centers around the relationship of a father and his son, an old farmer who's just, really, he's almost used up all of his life. And this takes place during a particular time in the past when lots of Swedes were, when certain poor Swedes were going from, rural Sweden where they just couldn't make a living, and they couldn't farm, and they were going to Denmark to try and find a new life, and especially in this case, this Baltic island of Denmark. And this is about how they try to begin their new life and what transpires, and it is just beautiful and touching and poetic and gripping and horrifying all at the same time. It's a fantastic film. Commentary on here by Peter Cowie, whom I've met a couple of times. It was just wonderful, great commentary, and an essay. Really a beautiful Blu-ray. This thing's been on DVD twice previously. Neither of them looked very good. Neither of them were timed properly. This is finally, for the first time since the film was released theatrically, the first time you will be able to see this film look and sound the way that it was meant to. It is fantastic. Pelle the Conqueror by Billy August.
Outstanding. I'm gonna jump on top of this Terry Zwigoff's Ghost World.
Yeah,
I feel
from Criterion.
And because it's thick, it's full of all kinds of things here on the Criterion Collection. 2001 film, young Scarlett Johansson, young Thora Birch, of course, and Steve Buscemi, about these young high school girls who are just getting out of high school, and they're kind of weird themselves, and they spend most of their time just sort of like messing with.
It has a great Bollywood sequence.
Messing with these creepy guys, and they get involved with Steve Buscemi. Anyway, this is the director-approved Blu-ray special edition, and it features, aside from the new restored 4K digital transfer, supervised by Terry, 5.1 surround, an audio commentary featuring Terry, and the comic, and just all kinds of stuff here, and some extended excerpts from a couple of different films from 1960. So this is just a completely packed Criterion collection for Ghost World. It looks great. It's a neat movie, and frankly, I like watching. This is when I was really nuts about Scarlet. The Scarlet who came out of what was the wonderful Coen Brothers film? The Man Who Wasn't There.
Oh yeah.
That black and white film. That All the Pretty Horses. I think was the other.
Yeah.
That 'cause people forget she's been a movie star for a
long time.
So anyway, really good stuff there.
Ghost World. That's great. Terry Zwigoff. Wish he'd do more movies. Also from Criterion, we have Jacques Audiard's Dheepan. Now, Jacques Audiard did A Prophet, which really became his big breakthrough around the world. An amazing movie. And Dheepan just amplified his career. It wound up winning the Cannes Film Festival. So that's 2 Palme d'Or winners we have this week. Dheepan won 2 years ago. And it was a little bit of a controversial winner. Some people didn't think it was quite so deserving. But Dheepan, I think, is a really significant film in this sense that what Jacques Audiard is doing here is it's a French film, ostensibly, but what it really is, it's the story of a family of Sri Lankan refugees.
One of whom is a Tamil tiger, a warrior,
a warrior,
which is controversial in and of itself.
In and of itself. And to me, that's interesting because we had the French Oscar-nominated Mustang a couple of years ago as well, which is about Turkish girls.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating that French movies, which have always historically been very, very much rooted in French culture, are now telling stories about other cultures, about immigrants to France. There are French directors going to other countries and telling stories about other countries. French filmmakers have suddenly gone global in a really fascinating way.
And they've gotten frankly, out ahead of the rest of French culture.
Yeah.
In a very odd sort of way. Had this been the case in terms of all of French culture, not just the filmmaking, over the last 25 years, had there been this embracing of French culture, then we probably wouldn't be seeing some of the problems that we've,
and that I saw 30 years ago when I lived there. Lots of extras on here. This is really, really just loaded with extras. Audio commentary from 2015 with Jacques Audiard and his co-screenwriter. New interview with Audiard and with the actor in the film, which is just wonderful. There's deleted scenes. I mean, it's pretty terrific. So that's the Blu-ray of Dheepan. And then, as we're nearing
Did he write Rust and Bone, Audiard?
Yes.
Because that was another
pretty great.
Matthias Schoenaerts.
Matthias Schoenaerts
beautiful.
Just
call her beautiful.
Unless she's in that Brad Pitt movie. It's just horrible. Anyway, here we go. This is fantastic. Criterion has now released the second of the Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project box sets. This is kind of a rare thing for Criterion these days. Everybody might remember that for a while they were releasing Blu-ray, DVD, dual format editions, and then that didn't really fly, so they just scaled it back and they went back to just separate DVDs and Blu-rays, so you don't get the DVD with the Blu-ray anymore. Not so here. This is dual format. And some wonderful movies here. Insiang, which is a Tagalog film from 1976. Mysterious Object at Noon, which is a Thai film from 2000. Revenge, which is a Russian movie from 1989. Limite, which is a 1931 silent film that will blow your mind. And I had never heard of it or seen it before. Absolutely amazing. Law of the Border, which is a Turkish film from 1966. And lastly, the amazing, the wonderful Taipei Story from 1985, which is just absolutely poetic beyond all belief. These are some really, really terrific films here.
I'm gonna recommend specifically the Lino Brocka film Insiang.
Yeah.
He's a Filipino director.
Yep.
And as you would know, one of the few Filipino directors, probably the first ever at Cannes. Right?
He's like he's like the only one right now.
The only. Yeah. And of course, his films were mostly about kind of the things that went on during the Marcos regime. I was in the Air Force during the Marcos regime. Yeah. I was actually stationed in the Philippines.
No kidding.
Clark Air Force Base.
Oh wow.
I was at Clark in Subic when that volcano went off and wiped out those two Air Force bases. In any case, this guy who died in like the early 90s or something like that, was a huge and very important filmmaker that people talked about him running for president way back then.
Wow.
That's what he did.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm also going to recommend Mysterious Object at Noon, which is by Joe. We just call him Joe in the film critic world because actually when we get together, look, this is how it is. Whenever Joe comes out with a new movie, and Joe is also a Cannes Palme d'Or winner with Uncle Boonmi.
Uncle Boonmi, who can talk to
his past lives.
His past, yeah.
So Joe's real name is Apichatpong Wirasikathul. Apichatpong Wirasikathul. So let's say we're in a voting meeting and somebody wants to give 3 points to Apichatpong Joe. Just Joe. And it's much easier to say Joe because otherwise the meeting will last 5 hours.
Yeah.
Thai names, Russian names, there are just German names can go this way too. Certain countries, you're not doing the world a favor with the long names. So we're just going to give you nicknames.
It's the consonants. That's the problem. It's just too many.
I have a problem with Thai names, but I love Thai filmmaking, and Joe is a great filmmaker, and that's a really good one too. So this is a great box set. This is just fabulous. You will not regret adding this to the collection. So to wrap out, before I let Tim kind of go off on Virus.
Yes. You go ahead and finish those.
I'm gonna just we got a couple of giveaways here, courtesy of Wellgo. Wellgo is just being wonderful to us. We've got 5 copies of Sky on Fire, fantastic action film, and 3 copies of Operation Mekong. You can apply for each of these. Just send us an email with Mekong, Mekong, in the subject line and your name and address in the body of the email. Mekong in the subject line if you want to be considered for one of the 3 Mekongs, and send one to Sky, S-K-Y, if you want to be considered for one of the 5 copies of Sky on Fire, which we will send out courtesy of Wellgo. Gods@digigods.com. Please make sure that we get these time date stamped no later than the 9th of June, 2017. And these are both really terrific action films. Got to tell you, really terrific. Operation Mekong is just it's fantastic. If you don't know, the Mekong is, of course, a river, and going all the way back to Vietnam. But this is just there's a whole kind of Chinese smuggling angle going on here, and there were like a couple of ships that were ambushed down the Mekong River, et cetera, et cetera. Forget about it. Doesn't matter. All you got to know is it's a whole drug smuggling angle and a lot of action and guys with guns, and it's nonstop, and it's really, really well done, and it's a whole lot of fun. And then A Sky on Fire is a really, really, really smart thriller, an action thriller that stars the amazingly cool Daniel Wu, who we will talk about again in just a moment, who, of course, is in Into the Badlands with our friend Sherman. Yeah. Daniel Wu on Into the Badlands is pretty rough. Here he's polished up and slick, and he's looking all kinds of cool, but he is still a great action star here. And it's a little bit of the MacGuffin here is a little bit silly. The Hitchcockian MacGuffin. I won't tell you what it is, but once you get over the fact that it doesn't really matter, some medicine thing, forget about the medicine. Once you sort of get into the machinations of the story and the ins and outs, and who's gonna win this big giant battle of wits in this cat and mouse game that gets really, really intense by the end, and some great action stuff. You're good. It's called Sky on Fire. Got 5 copies. So gods@digigods.com. Send us an email, name and address in the body of the email by the 9th of June with either Sky or Mekong in the subject line, and we will send you out. We'll let you know over the weekend if you won, and we'll send you out your Blu-rays.
Alrighty.
All right, Tim. So segging into our John Bruno interview, let's talk about Virus.
Yeah, because we do have the interview, and John and Sherm will do themselves well in there. Virus is a 1999 film adaptation of a graphic novel. What's interesting about it is that it's one of the early. It's right at the beginning of this sort of like adapting graphic novels for feature films. It's one of the early ones. John Bruno, of course, as we said at the top of the show, primarily known as a great special effects guru, particularly practical special effects, which you'll talk about during our interview. This movie is pretty neat. This movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland, Billy Baldwin, and our good friend Sherman Augustus in the film. They shot it, I believe, in South Carolina, mostly all across the coast. The storyline of the graphic novel is an alien intelligence works its way through a satellite, beams itself from the satellite down to this Russian scientific ship. A tug trawler, which just lost its cargo in a hurricane, comes across this Russian trawler, boards the ship, intends to simply take it in for salvage, but what do they find? This alien intelligence. And Joanna Pacula, I had forgotten that Joanna Pacula was in this movie, the very beautiful Joanna Pacula, in this movie, and this alien intelligence, which is basically taking the bits and pieces and parts of the ship and the humans, smashing them together into these sort of monsters that John Bruno had to build, which is the best part of this movie. It's kind of a neat thing. My friend not being in it notwithstanding, this DVD, this Blu-ray is just jam-packed with everything you can possibly think of: audio commentary, behind the scenes, this, that, and the other thing with just about everybody in the movie. It's a lot of fun. And, there's a whole sort of class of genre folks who love this film, the comics, the Dark Horse comic books that it comes from. It's kind of neat that we know these guys and they made a wicked movie that's, 1999. That makes it what?
18 years old.
18 years old.
Man.
Wait. It blows me away that Sherman, our buddy Sherman, who jumps around in that movie, in that television series, into the Badlands like a spider monkey, right? So when you watch Sherman in that, that's all him.
Yeah,
it's one of those. It's swords and
it's kind of sick how ageless he is.
He gets along pretty good there, and watching him in that movie is a lot of fun too. So anyway, we'll let them talk about it.
So here we go. Here is our interview with Sherman Augustus and John Bruno. Tim and I are here talking with John Bruno, director of Virus, which is now out on Blu-ray, a cult classic now, which is incredible. It feels like it just got released yesterday or a few years ago.
It's a really cool thing. I have to. A very good friend of ours,
yes,
Sherman Augustus, is in Virus.
Yep.
Directed by John. John, say hello to the folks.
Hello, everyone.
Out of the DigiGods world. And Sherman is in Virus. John directed Virus, and Sherman did me a solid by hooking us up with John.
Yes, he did.
To be able to talk about the release of Blu-ray. So anyway, what year anniversary of this is? 1999, right? If I'm not mistaken. Virus.
So that's.
I keep thinking it was 1998, but
because you guys were shooting in 98.
Well, we were shooting.
Well, it's 18, 19 years, so that's
it's at least 19.
And John, you go deep as far as genre films. I mean, you go back to Poltergeist and Ghostbusters, and you come up all the way. You've been with James Cameron as a special effects person for 28 years.
Right.
And so you go deep in this genre. Comic-Con people, they know your name.
Yeah, it seemed like forever. Every film I was working on was films that were released in the summer. So, they're always big. They're always, films that end with explosions.
Films that begin with explosions
and end with explosions.
Films that end with explosions. Walk us back a little bit, because practical effects. You were a practical effects guy.
Well,
explain what that is, as opposed to some of the sort of CGI stuff, which a lot of effects now are CGI stuff. Explain the difference between what you were doing back then and now, and what goes on a lot now.
Well, I mean, my background initially was animation, so one day I got in line to see this film, Star Wars. I had 10 years in animation. I saw this movie, and I walked out of the theater, turned around and got in line again to see it again, because I wasn't sure what I saw.
Yeah.
I didn't know how any of that was done. And I thought, I want to do that. Whatever, I don't care what, I want to do that. And I got, and right after that, I got hired to do the movie Heavy Metal with Ivan Reitman as a producer. And I moved to Montreal, did that film, and while I was there, Richard Edlund, who was the visual effects supervisor of Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and what was the other one?
Empire Strikes
Back.
Yeah.
Was showing Empire Strikes Back at the Canadian Film Board, and I walked in and I said to Richard, "Hi, my name's John. I'm an animation guy. I want to do what you do." And he says, "Here's my card. Give me a call." So I ended up in Los Angeles doing post on Heavy Metal. And I called him, and he says, "Well, come on down to come over to MGM. We're posting Raiders of the Lost Ark."
Oh, wow.
So I go down there, and I'm sitting in Steven Spielberg's office, Spielberg walks by. George Lucas walks by, and there's a poster that says, "From the producers of Jaws and Star Wars, or the makers of Jaws and Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark." And I thought, I don't belong here. And I swear to God, I had a reel under my arm. I got up, I was going to leave, and Richard came in and says, "Oh, you want to show that reel?" And I said, "Yeah." So I went in, showed them the reel, and they hired me to set up the animation department at ILM.
Wow.
Which was Poltergeist, Star Trek II, Jedi, and E.T.
Wow.
So I ran that department.
Wow.
And Richard left to come to L.A., and we started Boss Films. That was with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That's my short story.
Well,
that's great.
And of course, the technology we're talking about from back then is completely different than the technology of today.
So, all those, what I learned at ILM from Richard and all the guys there, which is a terrific team. I looked at it as I got to go to school and was being paid to go to school. So but the goal from everybody in everybody's mind was photorealism. How do we do photorealism? So if you couldn't do it for real in camera, the scenes were very short. I mean, the shots in Poltergeist are 11 frames, 18 frames. The longest one is 31 frames.
Yeah.
Today they're 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But and they did, the imploding house was a big model turned on its back and pulled through cables down through a hole in the ground. And we animated glass and flickers and light. So I came up through that. And then the first job that we had, and then the closet was a little miniature door. I think it was like 2.5 feet in Poltergeist with the lights coming. So in order to get light bright enough, in order to get debris thrown in at the right scale, but it was in camera. That was always the point. And then when Richard went to Open Boss Film in Los Angeles, it was 65 millimeter, meaning that's 4 or 5 times larger than regular 35 film. You had better opportunity to do a lesser and almost invisible matte line. So, because I became, we called it the chemical process of blue screen, chemicals. So if we thought we couldn't get a good composite, we just shoot a model or a miniature. Ghostbusters shows up, and they said, the goal from Ghostbusters, we have 10 months, this movie will release. How do we get it done? That was, okay, then it's models and miniature. We're going to have a guy in a suit.
I was going to say, I'm thinking of the whole scene, when the Stay Puft...
There was no digital. I got to think of that.
Yeah.
But a guy in a suit against a blue screen. We're going to have the terror dog. We're going to have the goat. Any ghost was just shot against black, and we call it and DX or cross dissolved into a background. Transparent, no matte line problem. But that movie, and then with the animation we did, the explosion of the building there was a 15-foot section of the building that exploded for real at high speed. So I learned all of that, and I guess if anybody wants to learn anything from this, is animation rhythm, timing, and understanding how much you see in 8 frames is very important. So. That movie, of course, Jim Cameron then cast Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, and we started talking about, because he did practical play. Aliens is really, full-size queen, a puppet queen, 4 feet tall, 3 feet tall. I redid that in Alien versus Predator, but at 4 feet, 4-foot puppet, in camera, and a 9-foot tall puppet, 16-foot tall puppet of the Queen in Alien vs. Predator, and then everything we couldn't do with that was animated, digitally.
So the Queen in Cameron's Alien was a 4-foot tall, full-size puppet.
Full size.
Okay.
And when it had to move, it was a rod puppet.
That Frank Oz type thing.
Yeah.
Guys beneath the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's great.
So there was no digital.
But it was better without digital. It really, you're not.
But
sort
it's
of,
photography. The difference is, even today, I still recommend when a film things within a budget. The Abyss was we had the only thing digital in the Abyss was the water chemical, but the submarine were at different scales of full-size practical 40-foot section, a 40-foot submarine shot in water, a 14-foot submarine shot on a smoke stage, the sub chase with flatbed and deep core. Flatbed was about 5 feet, radio controlled in a swimming pool that we milked up to make it look hazy. Nothing digital. We had, except for the first really, to me, it's surprising and satisfactory case of something looking photoreal with the water.